Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for coming.
You bet. Thank you, Tucker.
So great.
How about a round of applause for Tucker Carlson for being here and doing this, everybody? I thought I was going to get off easy. I got on stage, there was no Tucker. So
ain't nothing changed, nothing new here to see. This ain't nothing but some political maneuvering. America, welcome to the eulogy, eat it up. It's called political buffoonery.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of This Week in DUMBmocracy, a show that showcases political buffoonery as it happens during the week. So this week we're going back to the Family Leadership Summit in Iowa that happened last Friday, and an a clash between Tucker Carlson and former Vice President Mike Pence. We got two clips for you today. The first one is Tucker Carlson and Mike Pence discussing what's happening in Ukraine in the context of Mr. Pence's own Christian conservative beliefs and the religious persecution that is said to be happening in Ukraine. And then the second clip is the one that everyone's talking about. It's the clip between Tucker and Mike Pence talking about arming the Ukrainian army with equipment and money, and Tucker Carlson pushing back on that narrative. So let's get into the clips. We'll be discussing them in the context of my book, Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, which is available right now on Amazon and at Barnes & Noble and other book stores online. Almost didn't get that out. So let's talk about it in that context. The one thing I'll say to set up the clips, not everybody who acts buffoonishly is a political buffoon. I don't know if you would necessarily call Mike Pence a political buffoon. I guess that is a matter of personal opinion. The man seems to be reasonable and serious in most instances that I've seen him interact. I've been to speeches where he's spoken at before. But that doesn't mean that we're immune from buffoonish acts. Even the best of us forget our keys, or forget a birthday, or, a wedding anniversary, or, we lock ourselves out of the house. And those are all buffoonish acts, but you may not necessarily be a buffoon, right? So let's look at these clips and let's look at the answers that Mike Pence gives to questions from Tucker Carlson. And we'll see if these buffoonish acts sort of increase the perception of Mike Pence being more of a political buffoon.
You've issued a bunch of public statements about your views on foreign policy, which are definitely within the mainstream of Republican views, as far as I can tell. You recently met with Zelensky, according to news reports. And I'm wondering if during that meeting, as a prominent Christian leader, which you are in addition to your political views, you broached the question of his treatment of Christians within Ukraine. The Zelensky government has raided convents, arrested priests, has effectively banned a denomination, a Christian denomination, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church within Ukraine, has persecuted Christians. And I wonder if you raised that with him. I
did raise the issue when we were there.
And if you would have left the response at that, it seems like Mike Pence would have been in the clear. A short explanation about it, a statement in favor of religious freedom, he could have moved on from it. But that's not what he did here.
And I raised it with the leader of the Orthodox Church when I was visiting Kyiv, and asked him about concerns about religious liberty. He assured me that the Zelensky government in Ukraine was respecting religious liberty, even while recognizing that there were very small elements of the Russian Orthodox Church that were being utilized for the purpose of advancing the Russian cause in Ukraine.
So this is an important distinction that Mike Pence is trying to draw here. There were stories of elements of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine being sympathetic to Russian influence. And it seemed like that was the narrative of the story. But I know that there's stories from the Vatican decrying the persecution of different priests. I know that there were priests arrested. There's also a rival Orthodox church that also has been taking congregants from the more Russian sympathizing Orthodox church. It's very complex there. But so the question is, how far does Mike Pence's Christian conservatism go? Does he believe that you should have religious freedom regardless of who you support, or only for those who support the government in Ukraine? It's a very, very complex question.
and that they were taking steps to hold them to account. But the leader of the church at St. Michael's in Kiev told me personally that he believed that the Zelensky government was respecting religious liberty. And I must tell you, other than the sanctity of life, there's no higher priority in my life than preserving the freedom of religion in America and championing religious liberty around the world.
I'm confused. On this question, it's very clear that the Zelensky government has arrested priests for having views they disagree with. That's not consistent with religious liberty. It's an attack on it, and we're funding it. And I'm just wondering how is it, and I don't mean to be disrespectful at all, but I sincerely wonder how a Christian leader could support the arrest of Christians for having different views.
And there's Tucker Carlson pushing back on Mike Pence's position here. He's like, okay, there may be people with opposing views. You see that he admit that, but that is inconsistent with religious liberty. Let's see how Mike Pence answers that.
Well, what I can tell you is I asked the Christian leader in Kiev if that was in fact happening, and he assured me that it was not. People were not being persecuted for their religious beliefs. Now,
He said
let me
priest had been
take a
arrested?
break here. I know we disagree on this strongly, but I respect your right to your opinion on Ukraine, and I trust you'll respect mine. Look, I've been to Ukraine now twice. My wife and I traveled into Ukraine a month after the initiation of hostilities. We traveled.
Okay, this is a little bit of Mike Pence big timing Tucker Carlson here. I've been to Ukraine. I've spoken to top officials. This is what I see. It's not the most friendly tactic that you can do, but he's trying to strengthen his position by putting down Tucker's position, saying, I know more than you. But does he really?
Traveled then with a group called Samaritan's Purse, providing Christian relief to the millions of Ukrainians, women and children of every age that had to flee that country in the face of the unprovoked Russian invasion that began a year and a half ago. The truth is, what I saw was not just evidence of war, but I saw evil. And I believe that it is in the interest of the United States of America to continue to give the Ukrainian military the resources that they need to repel the Russian invasion and restore their sovereignty.
I'm going to get to the reaction in a second here, but did you see this rhetorical tactic that Mike Pence does here? Shared personal experience is trumping legitimate news gathering and fact checking here. He's giving his personal subjective experience of going on a mission of goodwill to Ukraine. That obviously colors your perspective about what's going on. And again, for Mike Pence, it's this black and white idea of good guys versus bad guys. In this war, we must side with the good guys. We'll discuss that a little bit later on, but watch the reaction of the crowd to this. I've never seen a former vice president booed before what should be, honestly, a friendly crowd.
Would you, may I ask, would you be, and I believe you have a good faith position on this, and we have disagreements on it, but I want to just, I can't let you elide over the question of the treatment of Christians and
I know, I heard
and
that
would
again,
you be,
Tucker.
well, no, but hold on, would you be
problem is
willing,
you don't accept my answer. I just told you that I asked the religious leader in Kiev if it was happening. You asked me if I raised the issue, and I did.
and I'm saying
I also raised it with the
incorrect.
Ukrainians, and I was told that there are religious leaders who have been working with the Russian military that is murdering people by the thousands.
Okay.
I mean, Tucker, look.
Wait, but hold on. Don't you think
Let me explain to you what I think our national interest is there.
I would think
He's not letting Tucker talk, but Tucker's determined to get his point in. And honestly, this is what I love about Tucker Carlson. He doesn't back down from anyone.
you would have greater concern for religious liberty in Ukraine. And I'm surprised by your
I told you I
answer.
raised the issue of religious
No,
liberty.
you spoke to one person who's clearly
I didn't
on
say I
one
spoke to
side
one
of it, and there are many, many news reports that are not disputed by anybody that many clergy have been arrested in Ukraine. And I'm merely saying I may not agree with their views. I'm not Russian Orthodox, but you can't arrest clergy for having different views, period. Because if you do, you violate the basic tenet of religious liberty.
I want to be clear with you. I won't stand by it. I won't stand for it. If people are being persecuted for their religious beliefs, I won't stand for it. In any country with which a country of our nation is supporting or our allies are supporting.
Yes.
Period, paragraph.
Okay, so there you go. You finally got the answer out of him, but it took a lot of prodding and pushing and digging. Now let's fact check Tucker Carlson. He says that this is a matter of record, that this sort of religious persecution is happening. Let's take a look if it's happening. So this is from VaticanNews.va, probably the most religious site I could find to cover this. This is from December of 2022. The story is the head of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, which is different than the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, appeals for release of arrested priests. So the Archbishop, his name is Archbishop Sevchuk, the head of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, made a special appeal to international human rights organizations, democratic institutions, and the entire international community to aid in ensuring the release of 2 priests who were taken from their parish in the city of Berdyansk, west of Mariupol in Ukraine. The 2 monks, Father Ivan Levaisky, I'm going to butcher these names, and Bohdan Heleta, were arrested in November, according to a note released on Friday. They are both part of what's called the Redemptorish Order. I don't know what that is. I'm not familiar with this particular religion. They had chosen to stay with the people even in occupied territories and was serving both the Greek Catholic and Latin Catholic communities. So here's a story from PBS about the Orthodox leader in Kyiv ordered under house arrest by Ukrainian court. This happened in April of this year. A court in Kyiv ordered a leading priest to be put under house arrest Saturday after Ukraine's top security agency said he was suspected of justifying Russian aggression, which apparently is a criminal offense in the Ukraine. I think this is what Mike Pence was talking about in his response to Tucker Carlson. So the abbot of the Kyiv Pechursk Lavra Monastery, one of the most revered Orthodox sites in Ukraine, has been ordered to house arrest. He's, of course, denied the charges of justifying Russian aggression. In a court hearing earlier, back in April, they said that the claim by the Secret Service of Ukraine, known as the SBU, that he condoned Russian invasion was politically driven. I have never been on the side of aggression. This is my land, referring to Ukraine. After the court's ruling, a monitoring bracelet was placed around his ankle despite his objections that he had diabetes and should not wear it. Earlier in the week, it appears that he cursed Zelensky and threatened him with damnation based upon his actions. Okay. The monks in the monastery belong to the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which I believe is different than a different Orthodox Church. But this Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which we're going to call the UOC, has some historic ties to the Russian Orthodox Church and their leadership. But apparently there is a different Orthodox Church in Ukraine as well. So the rival church is called the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, which more than 4 years ago received recognition from the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople. Now, again, I don't know what all this means. What I do know is that Tucker Carlson seems to be correct in talking about religious freedom, and Mike Pence may have a point about certain members of a certain sect having more sympathies to the Russian government and the Russian position because they have more of a connection to the Russian Orthodox Church. But enough about this at this point. Let's get to the main event. The quote that you guys, the interaction you came here for, and that's Tucker Carlson and Mike Pence talking about arming Ukraine. Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show.
I mean, we provided arms to Ukraine so they would be better equipped for this moment.
But let me ask
When
you a
it
question.
came,
I'm sorry.
Joe Biden cut off military spending when he came in, and even after that heartless, unprovoked invasion, which Joe Biden actually said, we don't know what we'd do if it was a small invasion. I mean, he signaled incredible weakness, especially after that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan.
So, Mike Pence is setting the stage for us for the context of this interaction with Tucker Carlson. Has to do with the war between Russia and Ukraine currently going on right now. Obviously, Tucker Carlson has been an outspoken critic of any U.S. support going to the Ukrainians. Mike Pence, his position has been well stated as well, that he is for stopping Russia in the Ukraine because it has greater ramifications across the globe. Here's the interaction.
And all along the way, the Biden administration has been slow in providing military support. Make no mistake about this. We promised them 33 Abrams tanks in January. I heard again 2 weeks ago in Ukraine, they still don't have them. We've been telling them we'll train their F-16 pilots, but now they're saying maybe January we'll let somebody transfer some jets.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vice President, have you, I know you're running for president. You are distressed that the Ukrainians don't have enough American tanks. Every city in the United States has become much worse over the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Drive around. There's not one city that's gotten better in the United States. And it's visible. Our economy has degraded. The suicide rate has jumped. Public filth and disorder and crime have exponentially increased. And yet, your concern is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who've received tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. I think it's a fair question to ask, like, where's the concern for the United States in that?
Well, it's not my concern. Tucker, I've heard that routine from you before, but that's not my concern.
Wow.
I'm running for president of the United States because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. I think Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad. And as President of the United States, we're going to restore law and order in our cities. We're going to secure our border. We're going to get this economy moving again. And we're going to make sure that we have men and women on our courts at every level that will stand for the right to life and defend all the God-given liberties enshrined in our Constitution. Anybody that says that we can't be the leader of the free world and solve our problems at home has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth. We can do both. And as President of the United States, we will secure our border, we will support our military, we will revive our economy and stand by our values, and we will also lead the world for freedom under my administration.
Okay, so a lot there to unpack. And let's start by saying that's not my concern is not a great response from Mike Pence. Definitely not a presidential response to say, well, let's forget about what's going on in our country. There's this war going on overseas that demands more of our attention. I think the American people are tired of hearing rhetoric like that. The next thing I'll say is that Mike Pence did himself no favor with this answer. Sure, it's a great answer when taken as a whole. But the soundbite is, that's not my concern, Tucker. That's a problem. His overall response of we can walk and chew gum at the same time, we can do multiple things at once, it's not a zero-sum game, is a valid response. But it's not what people are going to hear. Mike Pence already has a lot of, MAGA people that make up a significant voting bloc in the Republican Party. Don't kid yourselves on that. Very upset already because of his, perceived disloyalty to Donald Trump. That is what it is. Say what you want about Mike Pence. He's a principled and courageous man who sticks to those principles, even when they're not popular. He's proven that with his conservative Christian stance, his Christian conservatism. So it's not like he doesn't have political will to stick to his convictions. But he shows that he's out of step here with this thinking about what's going on in Ukraine, at least in my opinion, and certainly in Tucker's opinion. Yes, there are many atrocities going on in Ukraine right now. But I don't think that we can look at war anymore as a good guy versus bad guy dynamic anymore. It's not like we're dealing with great actors on either side, in my opinion. I know that it is the celebrity cause of the time to say, we must liberate Ukraine from Russia, this invading force and all that. I get that, but I also get that the American people are also tired of war, especially on the Republican side. That drumbeat has been hit by Ron Paul going back many, many years. It's been taken up by Rand Paul and certainly by Donald Trump. If you remember his response during the CNN town hall he had, when asked about, who would he side with, Ukraine or Russia, his answer was, I side with people not wanting to die. He wants to end people dying. Mike Pence is not thinking that way. although I'm sure that his religious beliefs would inform him to think that way. He is thinking more like the pre-Trump Republican, and peace through security and peace through a strong national defense. And I'm okay with that, but the response here is buffoonish. It's completely oblivious. It's very tone deaf. This is a response that you would expect from more of a political narcissist than you would a reasonable, politician. If a presidential campaign is a job interview, this was a very poor answer that reflects poorly on Mike Pence's campaign, only because his response was, "That's not my concern," quote unquote, just doesn't cut it here. It just makes it seem like that this old stance from a more establishment Republican, it seems like Mike Pence is more of a pre-Trump relic of what the Republican Party used to be, and is not acknowledging that the rules of the game have changed now. It's not the same that it used to be. Mike Pence hasn't made the adjustment. And I don't know if that's because he's stubborn in his principles, or if he wants to portray himself as being the antithesis of Donald Trump. Whatever it is, this made Mike Pence's job that much harder. He's not playing by the current rules of engagement in party politics at this point. So that'll just about do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Continue spreading the show. Thanks to you guys. We're over 1,000 subscribers in a very short amount of time. Thank you so much for all your support, all the comments, all the constructive criticism. You guys are the best. Keep on building this great community. I love talking to you all, and I love discussing what's going on this week in DUMBmocracy.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.